Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Crimson Education webinar. We have one of our most exciting sessions of the year today. This is our 2025 Student Admit Discussion Panel. Tonight, I'll be talking with some incredible Australian students who are accepted to Harvard, Stanford, UPenn, Oxford, Cambridge, and one parent, Chris, whose daughter was admitted to Brown University. Regretfully, we were going to have a sixth member on the panel tonight, Nick, who was accepted to Oxford this year as well, but he's had to pull out last minute due to a family emergency and will be missed this evening. Before we begin, I'd like to run through a few housekeeping rules with you all. So please take a quick look at the Zoom toolbar in front of you. If it's not popping up, just wiggle your mouse, it should appear. If you're having any questions regarding admin issues, if you can't see or hear the session properly, you can talk to myself or my coworker, Maria, behind the scenes, and we'll help you through that. You can use the chat box function for that. We'll also be running a few polls throughout the session that are going to pop up on your screen in front of you. I will launch the first one now. So this one here is a tell us about yourself poll. So it's just asking which state you're joining us from and whether you are a student or a parent/guardian. So you can just answer that in your own time. You can see that there's quite a few people here joining us from New South Wales, with Queensland coming in close behind, and Victoria also in there too. So welcome to all of you coming in from those various states. Another important part of tonight's session will be our Q&A. So if you have any questions for our panel while you're watching, you'd like to hear the answer to them, we will be addressing as many as we have time for at the end. Use that Q&A button as well. So don't use the chat box, use the Q&A, and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can at the end. Awesome. So now before we dive in, for those of you that have been to one of our sessions before, you'll know that I like to quickly go through our mission here at Crimson. Our mission is to empower young Australian students to compete on the world stage. Crimson aims to demystify the process of applying to universities in the US and UK, which can often be confusing and scary if you haven't done your research beforehand. We believe that the education has the power to change the lives of students and their families, and we make it our sole focus to inspire as many bright and ambitious young Australians to apply to the world's top universities as possible. With that being said, we recently received another year of record-breaking results here at Crimson. The incredible students that have worked with us on the journey have now received more than 1,100 Ivy League offers, more than 350 Oxbridge offers, and an impressive 10,000 plus offers in total to top universities in either the US or the UK. Our panel today have added their own 6 amazing offers to this tally, and we're incredibly proud of every single one of them. The Crimson Edge on the next slide you'll see puts our students far and wide above the rest. Understanding the admissions game and applying that knowledge correctly gives our students a cutting edge advantage. As shown here, Crimson students are up to 450% more likely to be accepted to a top university compared to the general applicant. And last but not least, Crimson helps student athletes gain recruitment as well. The amazing Lola, who you'll learn more about tonight, is testament to this, gaining her admission to Harvard through rowing recruitment. So far, the Crimson Athletics program has helped to support students in gaining more than 330 million USD in scholarship funding, as well as over 950 offers to top universities in the US. Awesome. So the agenda today is pretty straightforward. I'll introduce those of you at home to our lovely panel of 5, and then we'll run through what they have to say about their journey as we dive into the panel questions. Once this is wrapped up, we'll use the remaining time to open the floor up to those of you at home. A reminder that if you do have questions for our panel, that it's best to ask them using the Q&A box during the session. So if it pops up to you in your head halfway through the session, open up that Q&A box and pop it in there as well. Great. Now, I would like to introduce you to our wonderful panel, starting with Chris. Chris is father to Millie Barter, who unfortunately couldn't join us tonight as she's traveling in Europe right now. Millie was accepted to Brown University as an early admit in the latest cycle, accepted into modern culture and media. At high school, Millie studied English, literature, history, theatre, maths, chemistry, and French. Her extracurriculars consisted of a lot of sport, including football, climbing, boxing, and dance, as well as being a member of the Creative Writing Club and many work experiences, which Chris will touch on later in the session. As one half of Millie's strongest support system, her parents, Chris is here on the panel to help those of you at home with children set on the Ivy League to understand the journey. A warm welcome to you this evening, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Angus.
Awesome. Next up, we have Daniel Su. Now, if you Google what the top business school in the world is, UPenn's Wharton School of Business will show up on almost every list that comes up. Daniel was accepted into Wharton as an early admit in the latest cycle, accepted into a Bachelor of Science in Economics. At high school, Daniel studied maths, English, chemistry, Chinese continuous, and music. His extracurriculars consisted of starting his own nonprofit organization and being president of the Community Services Committee at his high school. At UPenn, Daniel was most looking forward to the dormitory life and also learning more about economics in a more structured environment, which he did not get the opportunity to do in high school. A warm welcome to you this evening, Daniel. Awesome. And next on our panel, we have Dominic Wang. For those setting their sights on the UK, Dominic was accepted to Oxford University in the last cycle. Accepted into engineering at high school, Dominic studied EAL, maths method, specialist maths and university maths, as well as chemistry, physics, and biology. Among his list of honours, Dominic has received the 2023 Melbourne University Maths Competition Outstanding Award. He was a 2024 Space Design Competition Australia finalist and placed 49th globally in the 2024 Physics Bowl. At Oxford, Dominic is most looking forward to the opportunity to learn about the different areas of engineering and to communicate with professors about their research. A warm welcome to you this evening, Dominic. Next on our panel, we have Lola. Lola is our only panelist that was recruited through her rowing success through the sports profile as opposed to academic. And with this, was accepted to Harvard University in that last admissions cycle. Planning to study political science, at high school, Lola took French, English, health and human development, mathematical methods, PE, and geography. Her extracurriculars involved, of course, rowing, amongst an array of other sports, including netball and athletics. At Harvard, Lola is most looking forward to the exposure that she'll have to incredible professors within the political science faculty at Harvard, as well as being at the heart of the Harvard Model United Nations Conference to further her interest in international law. A warm welcome to you this evening, Lola. And lastly, we have the amazing Kevin Howe. Not only was Kevin offered a place at Stanford University this cycle, he has also secured an offer from the University of Cambridge. Accepted into Earth and Planetary Sciences, at high school, Kevin studied Math Extension 1, Math Extension 2, English Advanced, Chemistry, Physics, and Economics. His extracurricular profile includes his involvement in his school's social justice program, helping with events like International Women's Day and fundraisers like the World's Greatest Shave. In addition to this, Kevin also participated in his school's cadets and debating programs. And at Stanford, Kevin is looking forward to the breadth of programs available to him, being able to take a wider variety of classes, not just in earth science, but in areas like economics, computer science, economics or computer science, allowing him to learn about the sustainability and how to accelerate the world's transition to renewable, clean solutions. A very warm welcome to you this evening, Kevin. Awesome. Great. So now let's kick the session off with our first question, one that many at home will relate to, and that is what motivated you to study overseas? We'll go in alphabetical order for this first one. So why don't we start with Chris? As a parent, what was it that set into motion your motivation to support Millie on her journey to Brown? Was this something that you wanted her to pursue?
So I'd say, I mean, obviously we would have supported her, whatever she chose to do. If she wanted to go to university in Australia, we would have supported that. If she wanted to go to the UK, we would have supported that. We've lived in Australia for about 6 years. We moved from the UK. So, you know, the thing is, you know, the one thing we wanted her to do was to have a look. So she actually went to summer school at Brown to have a look, just to decide if it was a good for her. And so why did we want her to have a look and do this? I mean, for us, it was incredibly important that our children at least have the opportunity to really experience the world outside of Australia. And we also felt that the liberal arts system in the US it just ticks a lot of boxes in terms of giving Millie the most flexibility in terms of deciding what she wants to do later, once she's spent some time as an undergraduate and not having to decide, day one when she enters university what she wants to do for the rest of her life. And I think that's the biggest differentiator between the US and Australia, and why it's so valuable to study overseas. It just dramatically changes your perspectives on both how the world works and what you really want to do with your life after you finish university.
Yeah, awesome. That's going and visiting is like quite often something that helps motivate the students. So like you can read about it or you can look online, but going and doing the summer school can be like a huge catalyst for that as well. Like really
Nothing can
being,
replace that. And if she came back, I mean, she really had her doubts at first, thinking she didn't want to do it. But when she actually she went there and spent 3 weeks during the summer holiday here, summer holiday in the US, winter holiday here, she finally got a feel for it. And it is impossible to capture that feeling by just, as you say, reading it in books and hearing stories, hearing me talk about my college days when I was, in my undergraduate years. The other thing I'd say is you guys did a model UN tour the year before that, where she saw five universities in the Northeast. That was also really motivating for her. So I think she went to Georgetown, Columbia, Yale, Harvard, and maybe one other. And that was really eye-opening for her. And that really motivated her to go to summer school.
awesome. Thanks, Chris. Now, Daniel, what about you? What drew you to the idea of studying overseas?
Yeah, sure. So I think what mainly motivated me to study overseas is, of course, firstly, the alumni network that you can access. There'll also be the resources and the world-class education. So, for example, since I'm going to Wharton, it's usually ranked as one of the higher undergraduate business programs. And so I think, of course, it's the resources, the professors that I can research with, and also the peers, the like-minded individuals that I'll be able to take classes with on a day-to-day basis. Surrounding myself with all these ambitious and motivated peers would be very beneficial. And also, of course, finally, it would be the graduation opportunities. So whether that be finding internships during your college years or employment after graduating, I think going to study overseas at such a top program also exposes you to a lot of different opportunities. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Daniel. Next, I'll popcorn the question over to Dominic. Why did you want to study overseas versus staying in Australia?
Yeah, I'm sure. I think for the first reason, I would say the UK universities will provide higher quality of educations. For example, Oxford and Cambridge has tutorial system which will allow me to have small groups communication with professors, and also the general engineering course in Oxford allow me to study in different areas of engineering, not just focusing on one specialized area. And to be honest, I'm quite interested in the whole engineering aspect. I want to learn something in mechanical, in electronic, in information, and yes, some other areas. So that's the second reason why I want to go to UK. And also, as Daniel mentioned, the networking opportunities in the UK will be better compared with Australian universities, because I will have the opportunity to know to network with the other students from all over the world. Yeah, yeah.
Great answer, Dominic. Lola, I know that you had a bit of back and forth yourself on where to study, and you almost ended up committing to UCLA at one point before Harvard became an option for you. What was the initial motivation behind studying in the US for you?
Yeah, so initially for me, I always knew I wanted to study in the US. I didn't even know if rowing was going to be the way I did that before I got into rowing. It was mainly because my siblings went to university in Melbourne and their experience was very different to, my parents' university stories, which is they say they've got their university friends and things like that. Whereas my siblings, I experienced through them not really meeting people. And so I kind of knew, well, I was lucky with my sport, rowing, that was an avenue that I could take that could open a lot of opportunities. But yeah, like you said, I did commit somewhere and then all of a sudden another opportunity came. And so that was a process in itself. But I did know that I always did want to leave Australia, just explore. And like Chris was saying, like broaden horizons, meet a whole different community in a whole different country. That was a big thing for me.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Lola. And now finally, we'll pass it over to you, Kevin. As someone with a background largely invested in your social justice, was this playing a role in your decision to study overseas at all?
Yeah, so there's a couple reasons, but as you were saying, I think it's because whatever I do in the future, be that in like earth science or climate change, I'll be able to have a bigger impact in America, essentially. So firstly, there's greater opportunities, there's more interesting classes because of the liberal arts system. I'm not confined to just doing earth science, but like since every subject is so interdisciplinary these days, like it's being able to study a whole range of different topics and try to synthesize, I guess, your own understanding based off that. And the second reason is like at Stanford, the other students there will essentially be the smartest people in the world, be that in earth science or any other subject. And I think it's a really special opportunity to be able to learn from them and to grow with them as well. And another reason is that in America, because of liberal arts and just because of their culture, there's a high diversity of people, backgrounds, thoughts, and intellect. And I think that's a very valuable experience as well. And lastly, I'd like to go overseas because it's the best opportunity there is to try and push myself as I want to learn to be more independent.
Great, awesome. And now we'll move on. So a lot of you would have been asking this question yourself, actually, at home. Why do I want to study overseas? The truth is that here in Australia, there's some really great universities in a lot of ways that might be perfect for you. But the reality is, if you are here tonight watching, you kind of understand that on a deeper level, studying in the US or UK does give you an edge in a number of ways. So there's some of them laid out here. For one, education is unparalleled. If you look at the world rankings, Australia does appear on some of the top 20, but the top 10 is dominated by US and UK. 8 out of the top 10 in the QS Global World Rankings are either from the US or UK. You can see that class sizes are much more preferential overseas. Or if you choose to study overseas, one thing that's huge that Daniel mentioned and Dominic backed up as well earlier is those alumni networks. They also open up internship opportunities and graduate salaries. It's not really a secret that some of the world's top firms in finance, consulting, etc., recruit from Ivy League and Oxbridge universities. So if you're at home and you're kind of looking for more reasons to justify studying overseas, feel free to screenshot this and keep it with you. We'll move on to the next question now. Awesome, cool. So we don't have too much. Well, we have an hour, but we've got quite a stacked panel tonight with all 5 of you here. So I don't think we'll be able to go over every single question with each of our panelists. So I'll keep it to about roughly 2 per question. But if you at home want to hear a specific answer from someone specifically about a question and they miss out on the question, post it in the Q&A box with the question and then the person you want to hear the answer from, and we'll try and get the answer at the very end if there's enough time. Great. So this next question that we have is, what was the most important extracurricular you did during high school and why was it so important? I'd like to start with Kevin this time. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, so the most important extracurricular I did was being the head of the social justice program at my school. And I think it was just a catalyst for personal growth, and it was really fun. I was very involved in a lot of activities, such as the world's greatest shave, and just making my head bald for a couple of months last year. Other important events, such as the International Women's Day. And I think it was very important because like I've been able to grow myself and help others grow by being exposed and learning about all the social issues there are in Australia. And especially just being at school where you don't learn this as a subject, just being able to learn more about society and what your own role is in helping other people. I think that's really important.
Awesome. And for those at home that don't know, what is the world's greatest shave? Like, what does that involve?
Yeah, so it's like a annual fundraiser every year to raise money for leukemia, which is blood cancer. And the main activity, as alluded by the name, is that you shave your head and you've raised funds as well. You can also dye your hair and participate in other ways. And it's essentially a pretty big thing. In our school, we managed to raise 100K last year to celebrate our school's centenary, essentially.
Oh my God, that's incredible. 100K. That's amazing. And you were an important part of that, then I presume as well. Yeah. Great. Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Now, Chris, I know that Millie was involved in a number of work experiences as part of building out that profile of hers. Do you think that these were the most important part of her profile? And as a parent, how did you help to make sure that she was able to build that part of her profile out in the end?
I don't know. It's difficult to say what the most important part of the profile is because, for U.S. undergraduate institutions, it's really and that's quite hard for young young applicants to grasp, because I think they're raised particularly in Australia, in an atmosphere of kind of standardized testing and ATAR this and ATAR that, and then they get hung up on the SATs. Oh yeah, you've got to have an SAT score above 1550, otherwise there's no chance. And I think the important thing is about admissions in UK universities, US universities, is that they're really looking at the whole individual. And the second thing is they're really looking to build a diverse class. And I don't mean diversity in terms of ethnicity or religion or things like that. It's really diversity. It's just they want different people coming from very different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, international backgrounds, work experience backgrounds, testing backgrounds, to come and make a different kind of contribution. I think, by the way, applying from a place like Australia into US undergraduate institutions is a big advantage versus applying from the US or applying from the UK. In terms of work experience for Millie, I'd say the two that stand out was she did an internship at the Sydney Morning Herald, where she sat on the editorial desk, and she actually got to, write an article, which it just blew her mind. I mean, that was a really great experience, and it really inspired her to want to go down an English type of direction in terms of, well, if I do English, there are many, many things I can do with that, and including being a reporter. The other one is she did volunteer work for our local MPs, Ali Stegel, and went to Canberra and spent time in Parliament and did speech writing for her, and actually wrote a couple of speeches. How did we get involved with that? Look, I knew the editor at the Sydney Morning Herald, and I knew, we're good friends with Ali. So, this sounds like, oh well, does everyone have these kind of relationships? Of course not. But we all, I think, as parents, we all have special relationships. Everyone has them. And so you have to think outside the box and how can I lever those relationships and make opportunities possible for my child, assuming they're really interested and passionate about it. It's no good if they're not interested. I mean, why do that? And really catalyze this stuff. Otherwise, it's very hard for them to do it on their own.
Yeah. It's important to be seeking those out, or always thinking about, who do I know? What can I do? What have I seen? Who have I spoken to that can then further help my child with their passions, their interests. Awesome answer. That's really great advice for parents at home that do want to look into supporting their child the same way. We'll move on to the next question, which is, what was it like for you moving through high school and applying overseas at the same time? This is probably one of the toughest things to do. I know as high school students, there's already a lot expected of you to go through with assignments and exams and the like, but then adding a US or a UK application to the mix makes it a little bit more treacherous. Dominic, how did you manage?
I would say, I would say it was quite a busy time for me because I need to do my school data exams, which we call SACs, that are contributing to my final score. And also I also need to do competitions and personal statements or admission test interviews at the same time. But I would say, I don't really think there's a key to how to learn how to manage your time. I would say as long as you actively assign lots of stuff to do, and you have to work very efficiently in order to finish the plan. Yeah, and I would say that time was very useful to me to improve my ability to manage my time, to organize my calendars and get everything done, what is my top priority, and to solve, for example, to prepare for a competition or prepare for exam, do something and to do and assign these tasks by order. I would say that time was very important to me. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Dominic. And Daniel, what about you?
Yeah, I think similar to what Dominic said, the time throughout year 12 was definitely tough. So I personally took the ATAR system in high school. And so, of course, I had to focus on my different tasks, my trials, and then leading up to my HSC exams, because I applied in the early decision. So I had to get all my supplemental essays done basically during the middle of my HSC exam block. So I remember I was sort of still working on my UPenn essays a few days before my chemistry HSC exam. So I'd say it definitely would be a very intense and tough time. But as long as you can efficiently manage your time and start early, I would say, to make sure that you have all the resources, all the documents ready. I think, yeah, that would be my biggest piece of advice for any year 12 students currently.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that it's going to be hard no matter what. It's like you might as well go all in. You have to put everything into it and make sure that you're structuring your time early, structuring it properly, and then you're putting in 100% effort, because it's going to be 10 times worse if you're putting in 50% effort or 60% effort, because you might not end up getting the result that you need or that you want. And then you've suffered through it. So you got to really commit and put your time into it. So really good advice. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, Dominic. We'll move on to the next question now, which is I'd like to pose for Lola first. What was the biggest challenge you faced bringing your application together? I know that you went through talks with UCLA, and then you weren't sure if you could apply to Harvard. And then once you found out, then SAT became a bit of an issue for you. What was your biggest challenge that you faced?
I'd say the SAT was definitely something I had to get my head around, but I'd say the biggest challenge was understanding the process. And that was because I think Angus touched on it, through kind of the public system, where as a sports recruit, they kind of do a lot of it for you. And it's, I will say, a lot easier than what I had to do for Harvard. So I'd say the biggest challenge that I faced bringing everything together was understanding even the SAT, what it was, what it required from me. Because as I think most people here would agree, it's so different to the testing that, say, the VCA system that you study for your whole school life, or what it is in Sydney. So that was a big thing, it being a totally different system to study for. So that was a big challenge for me. But I'd probably say getting my head around understanding what the SAT needed, what the application needed. It's not just, we spoke about this, Angus, it wasn't just asking me to write a really nice essay. It was actually a personal reflection. And what Chris was saying about looking at the student holistically, that's something that I never had to do for Victorian universities, and I didn't have to do it for UCLA. So that was probably, my biggest challenge that I was faced was understanding what kind of they needed from me, they required.
Yeah, we find with like athletic recruits going through that process, because it is so different to the academic sort of the academic process. It's almost like it's like if you're someone who's going down the academic pathway, think of it as if you have to like allocate some time to a sport. You have to commit, hours of your week to a sport, and you have to do really intense training each week to get to a certain level in rowing or in tennis or in golf. Because as an athletic recruit, when you're going down that pathway, then you have to really challenge yourself in the academic side of things. So it's sort of you're putting in the exact same amount of work, and then you're having to adjust and work in the other area as well. So
they looked a lot. And what I found with Harvard versus UCLA, it was the volunteering, the extracurriculars, the other sports that I play, like my family situation, all of that was considered rather than just me as a rowing athlete, which was a big difference.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Lola. Now, Kevin, your result of both Stanford and Cambridge offers was incredibly impressive. What did you find the most challenging when putting together your application?
So I think as I guess a lot of people allude to originally, just like understanding the process. It's obviously very different from Australian universities where you just put your ATAR in, and I had to wrap my head around all the different steps that I had to do to submit an application to Stanford and to Cambridge, just like personal statements and just filling out all the supplemental essays and everything, and the recommendations, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that was a very big challenge, especially in the middle of the HSC season as well. I remember very distinctively like having to do tests and SATs and whatever during school, or like it was quite a very big challenge trying to schedule everything and to try and have a timetable and having the timeline of when everything needs to be done. So I think having your own idea of the process and having good research is very important for that as well.
Great, thank you. Now the next question I'll ask each of you is it's slightly different for every person. So this was, how did your Crimson team support you on your application journey? So I'll start with Chris, for Millie, and also for you as a parent. What was the biggest support that you received from Crimson, and how did it help with Millie's journey?
I think Lola really touched on one of the biggest areas of support. It's really preparing for and structuring the process. And that process really, quite frankly, starts in earnest at the beginning of year 11. And that's that's that it's literally a 2-year process. So even myself, having gone to a U.S. undergraduate institution, I could never take the time and the meticulous focus on detail to be able to accompany her throughout that process. If you're not living in the U.S., you're not surrounded by it. You don't have 10 friends doing the same thing or 20 friends doing the same thing. You don't have a counselor at school who's done this 150 times. I would say it's mission impossible to do by yourself. Kudos to people who do that. I'm sure it exists, but I wouldn't understand how they could figure it out, even with an American parent. I'd also say it's changed a lot since I was an undergrad. Not surprising, but it's just how you do it, how you approach it, how you organize yourself. It's all digital now. It's very different. And so that's the first area that was really, really critical. The second area was really coaching her on a personal statement. And she got just so much one-on-one focus on that, which is incredibly important for US and UK universities. And especially her as an English major. Then I'd say additional ancillary benefits are, really the SAT preparation support that Crimson offers. Really great. But overall, the kind of headline above all that is the mentoring. It's just really having a US and a UK mentor who's there in the beginning once a month, and then towards the end of the process every week, really holding Millie's hand and guiding her through the process. Gave her a lot of confidence.
Yeah, awesome. And I should add in the tour that inspired her as well, right? The H1 one that she went on, that was like a huge eye opener for her.
Definitely. Well. Yeah, definitely. No, that was really great that she could participate in that.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And now, Daniel, what about you?
Yeah, sure. So I think similar to what Chris said, it's kind of, because I entered this process really late, and I only really decided that I wanted to study overseas kind of in the beginning of year 11. And of course, I did a bunch of different extracurricular activities throughout high school, but I wasn't really doing them with the intention of studying overseas or using them for some specific application. So it's kind of just piecing everything together to make sure that you're building a cohesive narrative and that you're crafting a convincing story to the admission officers so that they can believe in your narrative and they can see your potential if you are an admitted student. So I think that would be the biggest support that I've received with Crimson.
Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. And now over to Kevin. How did Crimson support you?
Yeah, so I think Crimson was especially helpful mostly in the essay lab and the personal statements and just being able to write the supplementals as well. And the reason being that a very big part of both the US and UK application process, but especially for US, is just finding your own voice and just being able to reflect on your personal life experiences. And as Australian high school students, there isn't a lot of opportunities to actually do that, not even in the English curriculum. And I think it's something that I was quite uncomfortable with, just trying to think back into my past and trying to think of what I did in the last 6 years, 6 very hectic years of high school. So I think Crimson was very helpful in being able to just trying to tease out parts of my life, which I never really thought about. And it's especially how every person is unique and has very special, unique perspectives to offer as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Great insight. Thanks, Kevin. And Dominic, what was your support? How was it different to the rest? And how did Crimson help you?
Yeah, I would say in my application process, my biggest challenge was writing the personal statement because English is my second language. And also personal statement is not just listing the students award or just mentioning some like some knowledge that sounds very cool, which will be taught in the university. That's not enough. And to merge this else and combine it with my own experience, like talk about what I learned, what are some my personal insight about the subject. So basically, and to show my like passion to this course, and also like show the examiners I have some potential to study this course. So yeah, my Great Crimson team as strategist and also my personal statement mentor helped me a lot on preparing for this personal statement. And also, I think the second point will be to help me maintain a stable and healthy mindset. Because if I need to do all the personal statement preparation and admission test preparation myself, I'm pretty sure I'll be much more anxious throughout the whole year 12, and that mindset is not helpful at all to my application process. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Dominic. And now, Lola, what was the biggest impact the Crimson had on your application?
I'd say it was the education around the process initially, because I started my conversations with Harvard whilst I was still committed to UCLA, but obviously being in Australia, I didn't know any of the ins and outs of whether that was allowed and things like that. So that's where Crimson were amazing, because they said, no, you are allowed to have these conversations. And then kind of, I'd say how I found Crimson was kind of the translator between Australia and the US system, because I'd say, oh, I don't think, it's going this way. I think Harvard's a no. And they'd say, it was someone on your team, Angus, that said, oh no, if they've asked for your extracurriculars, they're building kind of a profile for you and things like that. So that was great. So even if I hadn't heard from the coaches in weeks, it was a good little middleman to communicate
The
with.
ability to like translate the signals that were being sent out. Yeah, so that they made sense
I
to you.
thought it was a big no, but then they were actually like, no, it's not a no.
It's actually a good sign. Yeah.
Good sign, exactly. And I think I remember very clearly my first meeting with you guys. There's obviously big stigma around Harvard and the whole US Ivy League system. And so I kind of thought it's a bit of a dream, quite untouchable. But then it was, you guys empowered the dream like so much. It was very much, if you want it and the coaches are on this journey with you, we can get you there. And I'd say a big thing in that first meeting too was a second opinion telling me my strengths and weaknesses. So it was, okay, these grades might not be your strong suit, so you need to do really well in this area of the SAT. And that kind of thing, which I know someone said it before, in Victoria, they kind of just look at a number. And I know that's a big thing in Australia. It's just the number. The intricate details aren't focused on as much. So I'd say that was a big thing, kind of the translation between, and then of course the whole.
Well, there was a moment for you, right, where you were going to sit the SAT, and Harvard had asked you for a specific SAT score to get through, and you were like, oh my God, and it was a bit of a rushed change from the UCLA commitment over to this Harvard side. And so you had to like sit the SAT quite quickly. And the only available time was in New Zealand. And so you were like getting ready to go to New Zealand to sit the SAT.
We were looking
exam,
at flights. Right? It was a 2-week cram looking at flights. Yeah, it was chaos.
And then Crimson helped you by getting you into an overbooked exam, right? An exam
to who's part of the Crimson team. Will was on the phone to the New York office, on the phone to my dad, just because in Victoria, maybe it's just our family, we're just so far away. I didn't even know where College Board, it was the College Board, didn't even know where they were in the world. They could have been anywhere to us. So it was great having kind of an expert in the field on your side, because as great as our teachers are, and I was so lucky, I had amazing ones, that you don't know what you don't know. So they're amazing for Victorian and Australian universities, but it was just a bit out of their depth, I'd say.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lola. Now on to our second to last panel question for the night. This is, if you had to do it all again, what would you change? So this is a good one for those at home that are sitting there thinking, what do I avoid? Or, what should I make sure I'm doing? Because this is a really valuable insight from people who have made it to the end and what they would do differently. So listen up if you're at home and you're thinking about this. I know that starting early is always the answer to this question, or generally tends to be the answer to this question from a lot of the students that we talk to. But if you're on the panel and you do have a different answer to that, raise your hand and I'll pick someone else. So if you have a different answer to that, what would it be? Would it be, if you put your hand up if you have a different one? Lola, I'll go with you.
Yeah, mine might be a bit from a sports recruitment perspective, but I'd say with rowing, you get flooded often with a lot of coaches and colleges wanting to speak to you and get to know you, to bring you onto their team. So I'd say, but they often give you a bit of a rush, or they, put a scholarship in front of you and they say, okay, 3 weeks to make the decision, 2 weeks, we need to know, we need to know, we need to know. And I remember being in year 12, totally unsure what my ATAR would be. And that was just such a huge decision for me. And I kind of bought into that. I bought into the rush of it and the needing to make the decision really quickly. So I'd say and that's what I've been saying to people who have asked me at the moment is, you will be there for 4 years. So you really do need to take the time to actually decide which college has the course for you, which coaches do you get along with, what was the team like, really specific things that you value, and put yourself in that situation of going there for 4 years, because I think it's very easy to get caught up in the scholarship and I don't know, like the school name and things like that. It's just, there's a lot to be caught up in, especially when there's a time pressure on it. So I think just taking your time, and it's for you for 4 years. So I'd say take your time on your decision.
Awesome. Thank you. And now, Chris, as a parent, what do you think you would do differently, if anything?
Gosh, that's really a tough question.
It could be nothing. It might be that there was a perfect 10 out of 10.
Well, no, I mean, of course, it's not perfect. I mean, there's so much stress involved in the process, and I do anything to reduce the level of stress that's there. But I mean, in some sense, there's no way of removing it, because it's an incredibly time-consuming and high content generational type of work and stuff. And so, look, I guess one thing I would do differently, I would tell my daughter, don't take the SAT 3 times or 4 times. Because it again, just to really drill down that then it's not just about the numbers. I mean, if you basically clear a certain number, and you guys can help in guiding students as to what that number is, doesn't really matter. I mean, it's not going to matter much between getting, a 1470 and a 1600 on the SAT. It's not going to make any. But you could waste so much time trying to get into exam centers and doing the preparatory work, when it's the marginal contribution to your success is so minimal. So things like that I do a bit differently.
Yeah, that's so fair. And I would say that that's more specific to the US application. But when with Dominic's experience, and I think Kevin's experience with his Cambridge application, they're a lot more hectic when it comes to the exams and the academics side and the results of those tests as well.
Sure, there are like firm cutoffs, like thresholds. If you don't make it, there's no chance type of thing. Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
they're quite hard. Awesome. Great. Thanks, Chris. Now, before we move on to our final question, if we have time, before we open up the Q&A to you at home, I just want to say that we are so incredibly proud of you here at Crimson and everything that you've achieved this year. This is to our entire panel here. And for all the years that have led up to this point as well, and all the work that you've put in. It's such an honor to work with some of Australia's most talented students, and a massive congratulations to you all for your results this year. So for those at home, on the next slide, you'll see, if you are thinking about applying to a top US university yourself, there's no better time to start than now. If you would like to get in touch for a free consultation to find out how we can support you to get accepted to an Ivy League university, you can just answer yes in the poll that I'm going to launch in front of you right now. So this should be popping up at your screen at home. The consultation is just a quick 40 to 60-minute chat with an academic advisor to run through your goals and options, identify the level of support that you need in an area, detect if you're ready for a task as big as this one. Consultation is completely free, and every student that's worked with us to get into an Ivy League or Oxbridge University began their journey with this consult. So again, if you'd like to speak to us, run through your goals and potential of getting accepted, click yes in that poll. If not, that's fine. We'll move on to the next question as well. So the final question, what final application tips would you like to share with students and parents at home this evening? So we'll start with Kevin. Any final tips?
Yeah, my biggest tip is to, it's very cliche, but obviously pursue your passion. Don't just go for computer science or economics because it's popular and your parents say to do it. Actually find something that you're interested in. And this doesn't just apply for US or UK admissions or like any other country. It applies for life in general. Because like even if you want to do the most niche major or the most niche subject or discipline, you will be able to succeed if you're genuinely passionate about it. And like the converse is true as well. It's so much harder to distinguish yourself and to enjoy yourself if you pursue something based on like external pressures if you don't actually like it yourself.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. That's something that that comes up a lot as well. It's advice that we try to give to every student. That's one of the reasons why starting early can actually be really, really helpful, because it means that you have time to identify what those things are that you're really, really passionate about, to make the whole process easier and more stress-free. Chris mentioned how stressful it can be, and I think that's one of the ways that you can cut down the stress. Okay, thank you, Kevin. Lola, how about you? Any tips for those at home that you want to share?
Yeah, I'd say this might sound like a bit of a crimson pitch, but really speaking to people who know, I'd say that's a really big thing, and doing that early on. So I know that in Victoria, it's year 9, 10 doesn't really matter. It's in your last 2 years that grades and volunteer work, that kind of thing matters. But I'd say just getting involved in things early, keeping your grades up. It's much easier to keep them up early than having to fix it up on the back end. And yeah, just saying yes to things, volunteering, plays, productions, any extracurricular you can early on, because that's often what they look for for the whole individual.
Yeah, awesome. So click yes on that poll, right? If you're sitting there and you're thinking about it, now's the time. Now's the time to start. Great, thank you, Lola. Now, Dominic, for any student in Australia right now that's dreaming of studying in the UK, what would you say to them?
I think my answer will be not very special. As Kevin mentioned, just choose the course you're most interested in, because that will be the yeah, if you're interested, it's very likely to succeed in this course. And also start preparation very early and do the research early. Yeah, and also please keep confidence throughout the whole application process, even if I know the stress from exams or personal statement is very high, it's very stressful, but it will be the same for everyone. And let me think about some final tips.
That's okay. That was good. That was good.
Yeah, I also say like please always to seek information from the experts. For example, for PAT, which is the admission test for Oxford physics and engineering, Oxford University actually run an official webinar themselves. So you can just, it's totally free and available to everyone. But like if you don't seek information, you might not know this. And in that webinar, there will be some very valuable information, like what the exams will be, yeah, this just make you have an idea to prepare for the exams better early. Yeah, that's my answer.
Awesome. Great work. Great work. Thanks, Dominic. Daniel, how about you?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say try your best to be consistent. So that's kind of in all areas. So whether that's like academics or extracurriculars. So it's easier to be consistent than to, for example, if you have a sudden fall off and try to explain or justify why that happened. Secondly, I'd say be open-minded. So kind of building off of what Lola said, You know, if there's opportunities that you're interested in, just say yes. Step out of your comfort zone, because you never know what opportunities, you know, you could be exposed to. And thirdly, just to have a good understanding of your narrative, your strengths, and some of the personal qualities that you'd like to highlight in your application, and make sure that those shine through in your essays as well, because it's a good opportunity for you to be vulnerable and to show the admission officers your personality and how it'd be like for you to interact with other students on campus.
Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. And finally, Chris, let's reframe that answer to what final application tips would you like to share for the parents watching at home?
Look, I would say, number one, pace yourself. Don't try to cram things in brief, you know, periods of time. And that in terms of your support for your kids, it's very important to have pace and cadence. Check in as a parent, check in with your kids literally every day on how things are going. It's really important that they not have to come to you to ask to kind of update you on how they're coping with the stress or how they're coping with different aspects of the application, because you never really know how you're going to be able to help and support them unless you're like really connected and in touch with where they are. And you know, the other thing I'd say is, you know, it might be obvious to, you know, a lot of parents. It certainly wasn't to me as Millie went into year 12. Is you just can't do a lot of traveling that year. You've really got to stay at home and support your child. You know, sorry if I'm teaching people how to suck eggs, but that was really a big wake up for me, is that we're not going on that big ski holiday. We're not going on that, you know, trip to Hawaii. We're going to have to stay at home and really just be there.
Yeah, staying connected. That's really, those beautiful words. Thanks, Chris. Awesome. Now we have 10 minutes to go. We've made great time. Thank you so much to our panel for the answers to those discussion questions. Really amazing work and everything. We've got a really stacked Q&A. We've got about 26 questions that have come through over the course of this session. So we obviously won't get through 26, but we have about 10 minutes to go through what we can make it through. So we'll start with some of the first ones that have popped up at the very beginning of the session. Lily, this one is, I think, this one's directed at Lola. They want to potentially go to UCLA. Is there sporting opportunities to get scholarships or things like that for their school, UCLA?
Yes, there's definitely, UCLA have amazing opportunities for sporting scholarships. So definitely. And the coaches are very forward with that. They love, that's a big thing. And one of UCLA's strengths is that they can give out great scholarships.
Awesome. Great. Perfect. And then Kevin, this one's for you. Someone's asking, I would like to know how to get your school to convert your study results to GPAs. Is that something that you went?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure firstly that you don't necessarily need a GPA, or you don't necessarily need to submit it. Obviously, you do try to submit your school reports and your grades, but don't think it's necessary to submit a GPA as part of that. Otherwise, I think the best answer for this is to ask your school teachers if they're willing to do it, if they do a GPA. If they don't, it's fine. And just try to submit whatever they can. Each school has their own different requirements, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
The reality is we actually had the former assistant dean of admissions from Stanford out in Australia a couple of weeks ago, Martin Walsh, and he was actually talking about this, that at Stanford specifically, from his experience, they have admissions officers that are specialized in your country, in your area. So they actually know the local curriculum. So they know sort of they'll have like an Australian, New Zealand type of admissions officer that's familiar with the curriculum. And so when you submit that ATAR, they understand what that is. It's still really important to do as much as you can that relates to the US curriculum, just because it allows them to more easily compare with other students. So if you do the SAT or the ACT exam, that's a perfect example of how they can directly compare you to other students. But again, like Kevin said, it's not necessary to submit a GPA. But yeah, that's something that you know is specialized in most. So all universities are different. So that's just speaking for Stanford based off of what the former assistant dean of admissions said last a couple of weeks ago. Right. I think so. This one, this is probably one for Dominic. What other competitions other than space design did you do? Or I guess it's for Dominic. So I didn't quite catch everything. So did you want to talk about the competitions that you were a part of?
Yeah. I think for the competition, I did most of my competition in year 11s. I did physics Olympiad, chemistry Olympiad, biology Olympiad in Australia, and not the international one. Yeah. And some like AMC, Melbourne Uni math competitions and math research statistic competition. But like for example, Oxford will not admit a student just because the student have a very amazing competition. I would say a high score in admission test is more important than that competition. Yeah, and I would say like the most important process is the interview. Yeah, and I think the purpose of doing competitions, the first one is, for example, for the physics ball I did, I have to learn some math and physics, in year 11 and year 12. So later in the process, when I have to prepare for my admission test and the interview, I already have a good foundation of this knowledge, and then what I need to do is just doing the practice questions. Yeah, so that's very helpful. The second one is doing the competitions so that you will have something to talk about in your personal statement. Yeah, but please do not think of the competitions in the UK like ticking the box. It is not like you have a very amazing medal in some Olympiad, and then the university will just admit you. It's not like that simple. Yeah, the admission test and the interviews will be more important than the competitions. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Dominic. This one's for Daniel, because you were skipped over for this question and someone would really like to know, what was your most important extracurricular that you did, and did you have any internships?
Yeah, sure. So my most important extracurricular during high school would be being the chairman of our school's community services committee. So I think through that, it really catalyzed my journey, my interest, and also motivation to do more community service and give back to the community, whether that be through social work. So after doing the community service stint at my school, I joined my youth advisory council in my local area, and I also founded my nonprofit afterwards. And so I think I also developed a lot of interpersonal skills, worked very closely with a lot of executive members at my school. And in terms of internships, no, I didn't do any internships in high school. However, I did do a few work experiences at a few different financial firms, and I did put that in as well in my application for UPenn. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. This one is for Lola. This is about your rowing. So what did you achieve in rowing that got you into Harvard? So I guess what was your erg time? What were the stats that helped with that?
Yep. So my school went to Henley Royal Regatta twice, and I was in those boats. So that was a big thing because that kind of put us international stage. But in terms of what I did here in Australia, I had a 7:22 at school, and then after school, which is 7 minutes 22 on the erg, and then after that, and then Harvard said need it to be lower, and so I got a 7:17, and also we won nationals, which was a big thing because the recruiters always look at the Australian nationals, because that's where everyone is, obviously. So that was a big thing that really helped.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. And Kevin, another one for you. Did you take standardized tests for the US and UK? Because you did both. Did you do some tests for both?
Yeah, so I did it for the US and the UK. Obviously, if you have to apply to Cambridge, you do have to take standardized tests. That differs by each subject. It's quite easy to find that online. And for US, obviously, I had to take the SAT as well. And like it is test optional for some universities right now, I understand, but more and more universities, such as Stanford, are going back to test mandatory. So it is a good idea to take the SAT or ACT or similar tests if you do want to apply.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. We're getting a few questions about APs. Was there anyone on our panel that took additional AP courses here? Put your hand up if you did. No one on the panel did APs. This is something that students do take through CGA, through our online high school. We can do part-time APs as well. So if this is something at home that you're wanting to do and you're wanting to look at, then feel free to reach out. Answer yes in that poll is probably the best way to get advice on what to do with APs. Great. So probably we're reaching the 8 o'clock mark. So I'll look for one more question here. Just give me a moment while I find a good one. Okay, so this one here, we'll give it to Daniel. So on the back of the extracurriculars that you took and what you were discussing earlier, how did you create a narrative with those extracurriculars that you took?
Sure. So this is kind of building off what I said before, but really understanding your strengths, understanding what personal qualities you want to highlight in your application. So for example, for me, it was mainly about leadership, community service, and the volunteering work that I did. Also touches on a little bit of social justice. So I was very active on that within my school, but also outside of school. And so my narrative was mainly built around those few areas. So I think a good way to do that is really maybe have two or three things that you really want to highlight. So for me, again, it would just be leadership and community service, and structuring your application as a whole cohesively around those two or three qualities, and then making sure that shines through in whether that be your essays, your extracurriculars, your awards, honors, and also like your recommendation. So yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Great answer. Thank you for the final question. Great way to wrap up the panel. Thank you so much to everybody that's joined us. Thank you to those of you at home that have joined us tonight as well. I hope that this was informative and you're feeling really inspired to take the next step. Thank you to all of our panelists, Lola, Dominic, Daniel, Kevin, and Chris, who had to leave about a minute ago. Thank you for joining us tonight and sharing all of those insights. It was wonderful to get to know you all a little bit better, and congratulations again. This is going to be a very, 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 very exciting year for you all come August at the second half of the year. Thank you so much for joining and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.